And Aaron Gilchrist for more on how the Biden administration is responding to the latest in Gaza. Aaron, good morning. So we just saw it right there. The Biden administration remains critical of Prime Minister Netanyahu. How is Netanyahu responding, and how much is this straining the relationship between these two leaders?
Yeah, I think you heard Secretary Blinken there really characterize the complexity of the relationship between the two leaders, particularly in the last several months as this conflict in Gaza has continued. And so what we've heard in the past from the two leaders is that they have known each other for decades, obviously, but that their relationship has had moments of disagreement. And that really is as far as the two are going publicly. But we do know that there is some frustration on the part of the Biden administration and President Biden, even with the way Israel's been handling this war in Gaza, the way the prime minister in particular has been handling this war in Gaza. Some frustration that some of the advice, some of the military tactics that the U.S. has suggested to the Israelis, it's been heard, but it hasn't been activated in the way that the administration would like to see. And so there's this concern about whether and how the Israelis will go into Rafah, into the southern part of Gaza at this point. And that's, I think, a lot of what we're hearing in terms of resistance from the administration, a cautious tone from President Biden, is a result of concern about the million people who are now holed up in that part of Gaza. Joe?
Just last week, Aaron, the Biden administration announced it would be halting the shipment of certain weapons to Israel. Since then, the president has received vocal pushback from Congress. How is the Biden administration responding to that pushback? Is he still standing behind his decision?
He is still standing behind his decision, and really there's two parts to the decision that the president has made. Obviously, this word that came last week about the Biden administration withholding about 3,500 large bombs. We're talking about those 2,000-pound bombs. There's been a pause placed on that shipment of new materials. At the same time, we know the administration has sent over defensive weapons, small arms, for example, to the Israelis. And so it really speaks to, I think, Joe, the concern about the Israelis going into Rafah with a major, massive, large-scale military operation, and what Secretary Blinken addressed there, the reality around the fact that in northern Gaza, it seems as though Hamas is growing again, is coming back into some level of power. And so they want the Israelis to have defensive weapons in particular so that they can continue to fight Hamas, particularly in the areas where it seems as though that organization is coming back, Joe.
We can't forget about the hostage situation. The families of 5 Americans who it's believed are still being held by Hamas met with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, also Middle East Coordinator Brett McGurk. What are we hearing from those families?
Yeah, Joe, this was the 8th time that these families have met with the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. That meeting happened on Friday. It's something that's been a regular thing for Jake Sullivan, who obviously has been deeply involved in so much of what's been going on from the U.S. perspective, the negotiations that have been happening, decision-making around military activity. But it's been important for him, we understand, to meet with these families as well, to try to reassure them that the administration is continuing to make efforts to bring forth a ceasefire and to get these hostages released. We know from the families that they expressed some frustration that there seemed to be progress being made on a ceasefire deal and a hostage release, and then that fell apart last week. But the families remain hopeful, and they will continue to have these conversations with the administration. Joe?
All right, Aaron Gilchrist. Aaron, thank you so much.